Welcome back to Hannity and Combs. Last night on this program, Ann Coulter said she'd be happy to debate one of the 9/11 widows she criticizes in her new book. The widows group declined to appear on our show, but issued a statement that read in part, contrary to Ms. Coulter's statements, there was no joy in watching men that we loved burn alive. There was no happiness in telling our children that their fathers were never coming home again. We adored these men and miss them every day. It is in honor of their memory that we will once again refocus the nation's attention to the real issues at hand, our lack of security, leadership, and progress in the 5 years since 9/11. Joining us now is the author of Godless, The Church of Liberalism, Ann Coulter, and Democratic strategist Laura Schwartz. Laura, we welcome you. And where you been? Haven't seen you anywhere. Michael Berg, whose son Nick was beheaded by Zarqawi, says the killing of Zarqawi is not going to solve anything. He says it gives him no satisfaction. What will give him satisfaction will be the end of the Bush administration, and he's running for office in the Green Party. Is he enjoying his son's death in the same way that you accuse the widows of 9/11 of doing?
No, I was just asked about that. Well, I got a call on radio. Are you going to include him in the paperback edition? Someone suggesting that he is another liberal human shield. He almost doesn't count because he really is so crazy that he's not doing the talking points for the DNC. My point is victims, people with sad personal stories, basically saying the same thing anyone from the DNC could say. And by the way, as for the widow's quote, if what I say is so horrible, why won't people say, like them, what I actually said? Of course I didn't say they enjoyed watching their husbands burn to death. What I said is they're enjoying their celebrity status based on the fact that they are the
You
victims
also
of a
said,
horrible
how do we
tragedy.
know that their husbands weren't planning to divorce these harpies?
Right.
It's a pretty shameless statement.
No.
And if I were to interview you, Ann, and say, well, how do I know you weren't just doing drugs in the green room? I could make up anything and say, how do we know you weren't X, Y, or Z, and make it up? Why would you make such a statement?
I would make such a statement if my entire fame were based on my not doing drugs in the green room. Their entire claim to fame, the reason they're cutting campaign commercials for Kerry, they're saying that Bush caused the death of their husbands, is the fact that they were four of probably 1,000 widows on 9/11. They're using the fact that their husbands die to attain the celebrity status, to give the talking points for the DNC. Therefore, how do we know their husbands wouldn't have divorced them?
Deborah Burlingame has used her status as the brother of a pilot who lost his life flying into the Pentagon
to criticize these women,
to promote the Bush administration and to promote Bush policies. Why won't you lump her then in the same category, since she's using it as a political platform? Why not put her in the same category as these other women?
Right. No, I mean, that's a good question, but
well, why won't you do it then?
Well, I'm answering you. The responses you heard from other relatives who had victims of 9/11 tended to be in response to the victims of the Democrats, saying, these women don't speak for me. And then they said it once, and they moved on. They didn't start talking about gay marriage as Kristen Breitmeyer has in response to me.
Let me go to Laura here. Laura, let me ask you a question. You're obviously probably upset with Ann's comments?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I think she has a morbid sense of enjoyment.
Did you read Ann's book? Did you read what the chapter was supposed to be about?
Yep, I was at Borders today. I read most of it in the store because I didn't want to purchase it and spend the money.
You didn't want to buy. All right, I'm sure Ann is upset. Let me ask you a question.
She's selling enough.
I've said many times, I feel sorry, for example, for Cindy Sheehan. She talks about Cindy Sheehan in this chapter. And I said I've admired John Murtha's war service. Cindy Sheehan, for example, said the president, George Bush, is a lying bastard, a murderous liar, an evil maniac, a filth spewer, Fuhrer, the biggest terrorist in the world, who's committing blatant genocide in Iraq and waging nuclear war in Iraq. And she said many other things. I feel sorry she lost her son. She says these things publicly. Am I allowed to criticize her? Am I allowed to, take her on politically? Or does she have a wall of protection because she had lost her son in Iraq? How do you challenge somebody on that basis?
Honestly, when you put yourself out there to make a statement, you're open to criticism from all ends of the spectrum.
Is Cindy, what I just read that Cindy Sheehan said, will you say that is morally reprehensible?
I'd say that Cindy Sheehan lost her son in Iraq.
But I'm saying,
so
does that justify her calling the president a lying bastard, murderous liar, evil maniac, filthy spewer, the Fuhrer, and the biggest terrorist in the world? Does that justify that?
It justifies it. It's not the most constructive way to do it, but it justifies. She can do whatever she wants.
This is precisely
the 9/11
the point.
widows
You won't
didn't
answer
choose to
what
lose their
the
husband,
content.
choose to lose.
You won't say anything about the content of her
children.
statement. All you will say is she lost a son, and that's all there is to say. That's the whole point of the liberals' human shields. These
what
people
about,
with personal tragedies spewing the DNC talking points, and you say, oh well, we can't respond. They had a tragedy. They're victims.
You know what? They're victims, and the 9/11 widows chose to take that victimization and move ahead and demand
well,
for a bipartisan commission. I respect them for what they've done.
Yeah, as long as no one can respond,
she's talking specifically about 4 women, and one said, President Bush failed to protect my husband. They let al-Qaeda go. They let Osama bin Laden go. And they're out campaigning for John Kerry and John Edwards. In that sense, they entered a political arena, didn't they?
Well, it's a great way to get your message across, and they criticize the Clinton administration, too.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. More with the Lovebirds, Ann and Laura, in just a moment.